The Cowboys take on the Bucs, 8:20 p.m. Eastern kickoff on Thursday, September 9th, 2021. The Tampa Bay Bucs are -8, totals 52. If you like the Cowboys in an upset win on the road here, they're plus 290 for some money line cash. And following our sports wagering action on Labor Day, we improved to 2-0 in our last two extra daily picks on my BrockPage.com website. And if you want to access today's extra daily pick, it's only going to cost you just $2.99. We're also hitting at 72% in our last 18 Major League Baseball tier package picks, following our Labor Day bets as well. We currently have over 725 members who are signed up and active on that BrockPage.com website. And if you want to see which one of these free YouTube picks that I'm actually betting on personally, there's only one way to do that, and that's to sign up for a membership on my website. And once again, that's BrockPage.com. Now, Dak's coming fresh off a really bad injury. Zeke has kind of been a shell of himself over the past year or so. And one of the biggest losses for Dallas this week is going to be Zach Martin, who's currently on the COVID list. Now, Dallas is taking on a Tampa club who won their final 8 straight en route to a Super Bowl championship last year. This Bucs squad was also excellent against the number. They successfully covered in 7 out of their final 9 ball games. Now, Tom Brady threw for over 4,600 yards in the regular season, along with 40 touchdown passes, and there was a big learning curve in the beginning of the season there. Now, Mike Evans, he was a 1,000-yard receiver last season, with 13 touchdown grabs as well. Meanwhile, Devin White on the defensive side of things, he kind of, emerged as this team's leader on defense. He had 140 regular season tackles, along with 9 sacks and a great playoffs. The Bucs are relatively healthy coming into the opener. When it comes to the total in this one, Tampa went 4-1 to the over in their last 5 against the NFC East. Meanwhile, 5 out of Dallas's final 7 contests of 2020 got over the number themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Tampa Bay Bucs -8 and the over 52. Next game, Eagles, Falcons, 1 p.m. Eastern kickoff this Sunday. The Atlanta Falcons are -3, totals 48. If you like the Philadelphia Eagles in an upset on the road here, they're plus $1.45 for some money line cash. And once again, guys, just another quick reminder. I'm not going to say it again, but we're 2-0 in our last 2 extra daily picks on my website following Labor Day's betting action. We're also hitting at 72% our last 18 Major League Baseball tier package picks following Labor Day as well. And once again, if you want to see which one of these free YouTube picks I'm betting on personally, there's only one way to do that, and that's to sign up for a membership on my website. And once again, that's BrockPage.com. Now, the Birds are starting Jalen Hurts at quarterback here this Sunday. He started only a few games last season, and he completed a dismal 52% of his passes. The Eagles' leading receiver last year was some guy named Travis Fulgham, who had a couple good games, but only 539 total receiving yards on the year. I don't even think he made the team. I think he's on the practice squad here for 2021. Meanwhile, defensive-wise, an aging Eagles defensive line, they allowed 21 points or more in 8 out of their final 10 contests of 2020. They're taking on an Atlanta squad who averaged nearly 24 points a game in their final 10 contests last year. And of course, Matt Ryan, he threw for nearly 4,600 yards, along with 26 touchdown passes. Now, his favorite target was Calvin Ridley, who had over 1,400 yards receiving and 9 scores. And when it comes to the total on this one, 7 out of these teams' last 10 head-to-head meetings fell under the number. Philadelphia also went 70% to the under in their last 10 ball games. Meanwhile, the Falcons went 7-3 to the under in their last 10 contests themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Atlanta Falcons -3 and the under 48. Next ball game, Niners, Lions, 1 p.m. Eastern start time. The San Francisco 49ers are -7.5, totals 45. Now, the Niners have some serious issues at quarterback, in my opinion. Many folks think it isn't a problem. They think it's great, but I actually think it's a kind of a crowded quarterback room in San Francisco. And defensively, the Niners allowed over 28 points per contest on average in their final 9 ball games of 2020. Now, wideout Brandon Ayuk, he's been battling a hamstring through camp. They're taking on a Lions club who still successfully covered the point spread in 3 out of their final 5 ball games of 2020 themselves. Tight end TJ Hawkinson had 67 grabs for 723 yards and 6 scores. He's also going to have Jared Goff throwing to him, who had nearly 4,000 yards passing last year as well. And in addition to that, Goff has some quality playoff experience. Despite some significant struggles defensively, Romeo Okwara had 10 sacks and 14 tackles for loss for this Lions defense last season. Now, total-wise, I'm not particularly expecting a track meet here. Detroit's leading rusher was Adrian Peterson, who averaged only 3.9 yards a carry and doesn't really even have a place to call home in the league right now. Meanwhile, the Niners saw 4 out of their final 7 ball games of 2020 stay under the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Detroit Lions plus 7.5, keeping this one close, and the under 45. Next game, Vikings, Bengals, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Minnesota Vikings are -3, totals 48. Kirk Cousins completed 68% of his passes last year, over 4,200 yards along with 35 touchdown passes. Dalvin Cook ran for nearly 1,600 yards along with 16 scores on the ground. And Cousins' favorite target, Justin Jefferson, he was 4th in the league with 1,400 yards receiving along with 7 scores. Now, believe it or not, Cousins was 8th in the league in passing yards, 6th in passing touchdowns. A lot of weapons offensively for Minnesota. Now, they're taking on a Bengals club who allows a good amount of points on defense. And despite the return of Joe Burrow at the helm, and you guys know I love Joe Burrow, but the Cincinnati O-line did a poor job of protecting him. Burrow was sacked 32 times in just 10 games. When it comes to the total in this one, neither defense could be described as stifling. 2 out of Cincy's final 3 contests of 2020 did get over the total. Meanwhile, the Vikings went 8-2 to the over in their last 10 themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Minnesota Vikings -3 and the over 48. Next ball game, Jags, Texans, 1 p.m. East. The Jacksonville Jags are -3 on the road, totals 44.5. But as bad of shape as this Houston organization is looking right now, you got to keep in mind that Jacksonville has a rookie quarterback and a rookie coach. And the NFL, this is big boy football. This is a different game. Now, Marvin Jones Jr., he was battling a shoulder injury in camp. Keep an eye on him. And this Jaguar defense allowed over 33 points a game in their last 10 outings. Now, the Jags have also lost 8 out of their last 10 meetings with Houston. And speaking of the Texans, I don't think these guys are going to necessarily put on an offensive clinic either. Tyrod Taylor, he's been named the starting quarterback for these guys on Sunday. Having said that, though, they do have Brandon Cooks back at that wide receiver position. He was 12th in the league with over 1,100 receiving yards. And running back David Johnson, he also rushed for nearly 5 yards a carry on the ground. Meanwhile, defensively, despite a really tough year, linebacker Zach Cunningham, he led the regular season in solo tackles. When it comes to the total in this one, 5 out of Houston's last 8 ball games fell under the line. They also went 60% to the under in their last 10 meetings with Jacksonville. And of course, speaking of the Jags, I once again think they're going to struggle to move the football with a rookie quarterback and a rookie head coach. So with that in mind, I'm going to lean toward the Houston Texans +3 and the under 44.5. Next ball game, Chargers football team, 1 p.m. East. The LA Chargers are -1 on the road, totals 44.5. Now the Chargers finished 2020 with 4 straight wins. They also went a perfect 4-0 against the spread in those victories. Justin Herbert threw for over 4,300 yards along with 31 touchdowns. His favorite target, Keenan Allen, he was just 8 yards shy of 1,000, along with 8 touchdown grabs. Now, defensively on the other side of the ball, Joey Bosa had 7.5 sacks and 14.5 TFLs through just a dozen games he played in. Now, they're taking on a Washington club who really struggles to put points up on the board. The football team was held to 23 points or less in 8 out of their last 10 ball games. And they also gave up 50 total sacks in the regular season. Now, when it comes to the total in this one, Washington went 70% to the under in their last 10 ball games. Chargers went 4-2 to the under in their last 6 themselves. I like the LA Chargers -1 on the road and the under 44 and a hook. Next matchup, Steelers versus the Bills, 1 o'clock Eastern start time. The Buffalo Bills are -6.5, totals 48 and a hook. Buffalo was amongst the best covering teams in 2020, 8-1 straight up in their final 9 ball games as well. Now, the offensive juggernauts averaged 33 points a game in their final 10 contests last year, and Josh Allen completed nearly 70% of his passes for over 4,500 yards. Now, the hard-throwing righty also threw for 37 touchdowns through the air, and he rushed for 8 more touchdowns on the ground. Wide receiver Stephon Diggs caught 127 balls for over 1,500 yards and 8 scores. And just keep in mind, guys, that's only in the regular season. Meanwhile, defensively, Buffalo held their opponents to 24 points or less in 7 out of their last 9 ball games. Safety Jordan Poyer had 124 tackles, along with 6.5 TFLs and a couple of interceptions. Now, they're taking on a Steeler organization who lost 5 out of their final 6 ball games of 2020. This Pittsburgh defense allowed 23 points or more in all of those games during that stretch. Now, Pittsburgh's leading rusher on the roster right now from last year is Benny Snell, who averaged just 3.3 yards per carry and only 23 yards rushing a game. Now, when it comes to the number in this one, Pittsburgh saw their last 4 straight all get over the line. Meanwhile, Buffalo went 70% to the over in their last 10 themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Buffalo Bills -6.5 and the over 48 and a hook. Next ball game, Jets, Panthers, 1 o'clock East. The Carolina Panthers are -5.5, totals 45. Despite their struggles last year, the Panthers did do a nice job covering the number. They covered the spread in 4 out of their last 6 ball games. And they also garnered a nice 20-13 victory over Washington during that stretch. Sam Darnold's at the helm for Carolina, who, in my opinion, has all the tools to be a great quarterback, but just didn't have the right pieces around him in New York for all of his career. This guy has an incredible amount of arm talent and just talent athletically. Now, Darnold's got himself 1,000-yard receivers from last year in DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. Meanwhile, defensively, Brian Burns was 14th in the league in sacks. Now they're taking on a Jets club who's got a new, coach, rookie quarterback, just not a whole lot of talent. And although the Jets brought in, a defensive head coach here, just keep in mind, guys, that offensively, the Jets averaged only 16 points per contest in their final 10 games offensively. So I don't care how good your defense is, they might not be able to score enough points. New York's leading rusher on the roster is Ty Johnson from last year, who scored just 1 touchdown on the ground and rushed for a total of 254 yards. Scoring-wise, I can't imagine this Jets defense improved all that much despite the new scheme. That said, though, they did see 3 out of their last 4 ball games stay under the total. Meanwhile, Carolina's last 3 contests of 2020 stayed under the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Carolina Panthers -5.5 and the under 45 points. Next ball game, Cardinals, Titans, 1 p.m. Eastern kickoff. The Tennessee Titans are -3, totals 52. The Titans won 5 out of their last 8 ball games, 59 total touchdowns during the regular season. Of course, Derrick Henry was responsible for most of those scores. He rushed for over 2,000 yards last year, along with 17 touchdowns on the ground. Now, the big man averaged nearly 5.5 yards a carry. Meanwhile, quarterback Ryan Tannehill threw for 33 touchdown passes, mostly thanks in part to the efforts of A.J. Brown. The wideout had nearly 1,100 yards receiving in the regular season, along with 11 scores. Now they're taking on a Cardinals team who lost 5 out of their final 7 games of 2020, and they also posted a record of just 2-7 against the spread in their final 9. The Cardinals have failed to cover the number in 4 out of their last 6 against an AFC opponent, and I know they have a couple nice acquisitions, but I don't know if they can get the job done here. Now, total-wise, Tennessee saw 3 out of their last 4 ball games get over the line. The Titans also went 7-2 to the over in their last 9. I'm going to lean toward the Tennessee Titans -3 and the over 52. Next contest, Seahawks, Colts, 1 o'clock East. The Seattle Seahawks are -2.5, totals 50. Russell Wilson completed nearly 70% of his passes in the regular season, 4,200 yards and 40 touchdown heaves. He had 2,000-yard receivers in DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett. Both receivers had 10 touchdowns apiece in the regular season. Now, Seattle won 6 out of their final 8 ball games in 2020. And they held their opponents to just 14 points a game during that span. Jamal Adams had 9.5 sacks from the secondary, 83 total tackles, and 14 TFLs. Now, they're taking on a Colts franchise who has a broken quarterback. Literally, Carson Wentz, he's broken. They have a broken quarterback and a bit of an overrated defense. Now, I realize they have some really top-notch players on the D, high-level players. But Indy allowed 27 points a game in their final 8 ball games. And once again, they have a broken Carson Wentz at quarterback who completed just 57% of his passes in Philly last year and threw 15 interceptions. Now, Wentz also ran himself into 50 total sacks in just a dozen games as well. He ran himself into sacks. The O-line was bad, but not that bad. He ran himself into those sacks. Now, total-wise, Indy 6-3 at the over in their last 9. Seattle saw their final 2 of 2020 get over the line as well. Give me Seattle -2.5 in the over 50. Next game, Broncos-Giants, 425 East. The Denver Broncos are -3, totals 41 and a hook. And even though the Broncos return with a good amount of talent on both sides of the ball, starting quarterback Teddy Bridgewater threw just 15 touchdown passes along with 11 interceptions last season. The Broncos lost 7 out of their last 9 ball games, and they gave up a whole bunch of points in the process. This Denver defense allowed over 28 points per game on average in their final 10 contests of 2020. Now, they're taking on a Giants club who played some pretty tough defense in many different spots down the home stretch last season. They allowed just 20 points a game in their last 10 outings, and they were led by Leonard Williams, who was 7th in the league with 11.5 sacks. Now, Blake Martinez, he was pretty good last year. He was 7th in the league with 86 solo tackles, along with 3 sacks. The linebacker had 151 total tackles on the season. Now, it does look like Barkley and Ingram are going to end up playing here Sunday, both battling injuries. But I'm actually relying on this Giants defense to get the job here, regardless of Barkley and Ingram's time in the game. Now, when it comes to the scoring in this one, New York's last 8 straight ball games all stayed under the number. Not a whole lot of scoring in them. Meanwhile, 5 out of Denver's last 8 outings stayed under the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward the New York Giants +3 in the under 41.5. Next matchup, Dolphins, Patriots, 425 East. The New England Patriots are -3, totals 43.5. Now, I'll tell you what, even in the dynasty years, the Pats do tend to have their hands full with Miami for whatever reason. Miami's always played them tough, even in those dominant dynasty New England years. Now, New England's leading rusher on the roster, he rushed for just 691 total yards on the year last year and only 2 scores. And, of course, New England's going to work with a rookie quarterback to start in week 1. And I don't care how good he looked in camp, that's certainly a big hurdle against a divisional opponent in your first start. Let me tell you this, Cam Newton looked good in camp last year too. Now the Pats are going to have to go to work without wide receiver N'Keal Harry. He's battling a shoulder. And The Dolphins, on the other side, they actually won 7 out of their last 10 ball games, 70% against the number during that stretch. Very good covering team. And of course, Xavier Howard, he had an incredible year last season. He led the league in both interceptions and PDs. The dangerous corner had 10 interceptions on the year, along with 20 PDs. Meanwhile, offensively, tight end Mike Gesicki, he looks to make a big impact again this season, especially in short yardage and red zone situations. Now, keep in mind, Devontae Parker, he's going to be on that injury report with a leg injury, so keep an eye on him. When it comes to the total on this one, 4 out of Miami's last 7 ball games stayed under the line. Meanwhile, the Pats went 7-1 to the under in their last 8 themselves. Plus, I don't expect Belichick to ask Mac Jones to do more than what's expected. I'm going to lean toward the Miami Dolphins +3 and the under 43.5. Next matchup, Packers-Saints, 4:25 Eastern Standard Time. Now, this game's actually being played in Jacksonville due to the flooding in New Orleans from Hurricane Ida. And it's the Packers who are -4.5 away from home, totals 50. Now, the Packers won 7 out of their final 8 ball games, 5-3 against the number during that span. Aaron Rodgers completed a ridiculous 71% of his passes, and he was just shy of 4,300 yards in the regular season. Rodgers also threw for 48 touchdown passes, and his favorite target, Devontae Adams, he had nearly 1,400 yards receiving. Now, Adams and tight end Robert Tonyan, they combined for 29 receiving touchdowns between the two of them. Meanwhile, rushing-wise, Aaron Jones was 4th in the league with over 1,100 yards rushing. Now, the running back averaged 5.5 yards a carry, which was 5th in the league as well. They're taking on a Saints organization who put their future in the hands of Jameis Crablegs Winston. Jameis Winston. He's an interception machine. He throws a lot of them. Meanwhile, defensively, the Saints gave up 30 points or more to the likes of Tampa Bay, Minnesota, and Kansas City within their last handful of games last year. Now, New Orleans' leading wide receiver Emmanuel Sanders, he also jumped ship to Buffalo, and tight end Jared Cook, he left for the Chargers. Now, Pro Bowl kicker Will Lutz, he's out with an abdominal injury. When it comes to the total, 9 out of these teams' last 10 meetings got over the posted number. Meanwhile, the Packers saw their last 4 games of last year get over the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Green Bay Packers -4.5 and the over 50 points. Next contest, Browns-Chiefs, 4:25 East. The Kansas City Chiefs are -7, totals 54.5. Now, Kansas City did a really bad job of covering the point spread last season. They failed to cover in 9 out of their last 10 ball games. They also gave up over 25 points a game during that span. And oddly enough, it just seems like the losing team in the Super Bowl is deflated during the following season. They just don't come back and play well. They just don't. Now, they're taking on a very hungry Browns organization who won 7 out of their last 10 ball games. And they did a real nice job running the football. Nick Chubb was a 1,000-yard rusher in just 12 games, 4th in the league in both rushing touchdowns and yards per carry. Now, the running back scored 12 times on the ground and averaged over 5.5 yards per touch. Meanwhile, Kareem Hunt averaged 4.2 yards per carry himself and scored 6 times on the ground as well. Now, both of those backs combined for nearly 2,000 yards in the regular season. And of course, Cleveland has one of the scariest receiving corps in the AFC. Now, total-wise, 3 out of Cleveland's last 5 ball games did stay under the number. Meanwhile, the Chiefs saw 3 out of their last 5 stay under the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Cleveland Browns +7 and the under 54.5. Next matchup, Sunday Night Football. I'm talking about Bears versus the Rams, 8:20 p.m. Eastern kickoff. The Rams are -7, totals 46. Now, the Rams improved at the quarterback position, and they still have their elite receivers and tight ends. And of course, defensively, Aaron Donald had 13.5 sacks in the regular season, along with 19.5 tackles for loss. Leonard Floyd was also 10th in the league with 10.5 sacks himself. The Rams allowed just 17 points a game in their final 6 ball games of 2020. Now they're taking on a Bears club who has Andy Dalton as their quarterback. That's not a good thing. Meanwhile, defensively, Chicago gave up 21 points or more in 7 out of their last 10 ball games, and that's supposed to be the keystone of this organization, that defense. Now, total-wise, 5 out of Chicago's last 7 ball games got over the number. Meanwhile, the Rams saw their final 2 ball games last season get over the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward the LA Rams -7 and the over 46. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our next and final matchup. It is going to be Ravens versus the Raiders, 8:15 Eastern kickoff on Monday Night Football. The Baltimore Ravens are -4.5, numbers 51. Baltimore allowed just 13 points per contest in their final seven ball games of 2020, throwing out that Cleveland game. Now, the Ravens were also one of the best covering teams in the league in the second half of the season as well. 7-1 against the spread in their final 8 contests of 2020. Lamar Jackson threw 26 touchdown passes and rushed for over 1,000 yards. Meanwhile, running backs J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, they combined for 15 touchdown rushes on the ground between the two of them. Meanwhile, receiving-wise, Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews combined for 15 touchdown receptions between the two of them as well. Now, they're taking on a Vegas club who lost 5 out of their last 7 ball games, and they failed to cover 5 times during that stretch. This Raider defense gave up 34 points a game during that span as well. Meanwhile, on the offensive end, the Raiders' top wideout from last season is Hunter Renfrow, who had just 2 touchdown receptions. Now, when it comes to the number in this one, 7 out of the Raiders' last 10 meetings with Baltimore got over the line. Las Vegas also went 5-0 to the over in their last 5 ball games of 2020 as well. I'm going to lean toward the Baltimore Ravens -4.5 and the over 51. And with that, guys, now it's time for our quick pick recap. Powered to you by my website at brockpage.com, where we are hitting at 72% in our last 18 Major League Baseball tier package picks following our bets on Labor Day. I like Tampa Bay -8 over 52. Atlanta -3 under 48. Detroit +7.5 under 45. Minnesota -3 over 48. Houston +3 under 44.5. LA Chargers -1 under 44.5. Buffalo -6.5 over 48.5. Carolina -5.5 under 45. Tennessee -3 over 52. Seattle -2.5 over 50 points. New York Giants +3 under 41.5. Miami Dolphins +3 under 43.5. Green Bay -4.5 over 50. Cleveland +7 under 54.5. LA Rams -7 over 46. And before I give you my next and final free pick for the video, one final reminder that we are hitting at 72% in our last 18 Major League Baseball tier package picks following our Labor Day bets yesterday. I'm going to lean toward the Baltimore Ravens -4.5 and the over 51. And with that, guys, now it's time for our shout out of the day. And that goes to Uptown Legend, who said earlier today, "You're the man, Brock, killing it with picks and videos. Rock on." And I certainly appreciate that. That's good energy. I like that. Good energy out of Uptown Legends. Certainly appreciate you taking the time to drop me a line in the comment section below. And with that, guys, that's going to do it for our Week 1 video. It's great to be back. Man, I was really jonesing for some NFL. And we're back in the mix here, guys. We're back in the fold. And in just 1 month, we're going to have NBA back. I'm telling you, we're going to be in the full swing of things. And I cannot wait. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on my website at brockpage.com. Now, if you guys do end up getting a membership here today on that website, just keep in mind you're going to get billed the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. I always tell folks the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. But most importantly, guys, I got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. I really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. With that said, guys, happy Tuesday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at brockpage.com.